To see things in a bigger picture.
She knows what she's doing. Yeah. Well, you're also very familiar with our guest, Bryan Walters, here. Very excited to have him on the show. Bryan, you're the second guest in the history of the Matt and Kayla Show, so I hope that doesn't feel like too much.
Wow.
I know you played in the NFL and did all the whatever. And being the second guest on the Matt and Kayla Show, I know has got to be pretty life-changing for you. We really appreciate you stopping by and taking the time and previewing this exciting Niners and Seahawks rematch that we got going on here in just a few days.
Well, hey, congrats to you guys. That's awesome. I love it. Opening week, I hear. Is that correct?
Yeah, second day.
Beautiful. How's it going so far?
It's going great, and it's even better now that you're here. And we've been spoiled, really, Bryan, because we had a great weekend of wild card football. We had the Sacramento Kings beat the Los Angeles Lakers last night, and that's always fun to say. But we get this rematch that a lot of people had circled on the calendar, right? I know it just happened in Week 18. Niners, Seahawks again. It feels right that they're meeting again here, this time in Seattle. And what I've had on the top of my mind, and I'm really curious your perspective on this, is how much does Week 18 matter? I know there were, it was recent, and there was plenty on the line in that game, but playoffs are a different beast, right? So how much context can we take from Week 18, and how much is this a clean slate between two teams that have each beaten each other at least once this year?
I was thinking about that, actually, before I came on. I'm just thinking how going into Week 18, how everything was on the line that game. That's what it felt like. It was like number one seed, first round bye. All right. But now here we are, and it's like that win this game. And either one of these teams, the Seahawks or the 49ers, would trade a win for this game compared to 18 in a second, right? Because it's all about the playoffs and the division title. Okay, who cares? Now at this point, who cares? So I was thinking about that and how it just the build up to Week 18, how that was. And I also was thinking about how crazy it is that you're playing a team now where you went the longest possible distance between playing them twice, first week to the 18th week, now to about the shortest, at least for the Seahawks, back to back for the Seahawks. I know the Niners, you guys had one team in between, but I mean, it's just kind of crazy the differences now in those two matchups, going from a 17-week break to now pretty much. I'm still talking about it's the last game the Seahawks played, so we're comparing that game the whole week here leading up to this. So it's pretty crazy situation or scenario there.
I'm curious. Bryan Walters with us now. He does the pregame and postgame for Fox 13 there in Seattle. So I will admit, I mean, I'm a Seahawks fan, but I am not a huge Sam Darnold fan. I've never been a Sam Darnold fan. So I'm curious as to what it's been like there in Seattle. You know, you do all the games. How have the fans grown with Sam Darnold? Are they still, are they still somewhat cautious of him? And obviously we saw what happened with Minnesota last year in the playoffs. Or is everybody fully on board with Sam Darnold and taking him to the Super Bowl?
I think people are still going to be cautious, but that's because that's the narrative that's going around everywhere. That's what they keep hearing. When I look at Sam Darnold, I mean, I look at the first half of the season, he top 5 MVP candidate. The plays he was making, the throws he was making, very explosive throws. But you also look at that, and he wasn't asked to do too much. The Seahawks, as much as they, rely on JSN and Sam Darnold, well, the run game's the heart of this team. It is. And they want to run the ball. The first half of the season, the Seahawks weren't running the ball that well, but they were sticking to it. And I think that was the big thing. They were still running the ball 30, 35 times a game and making Sam Darnold throw it 20, 25 times a game. That was the formula. And Sam Darnold was excelling doing that. Recently, I know Sam Darnold's kind of fallen back a little bit. That's what everyone's kind of talked about, but he's been asked to throw it a little bit more. But then the last few weeks, the run game's really picked up again. And you saw what it did last week against the 49ers. Both running backs kind of going off at one point or the other. Kenneth Walker rushed for 97 yards, I think, and Charbonnet rushed for 70-something against the 49ers, and that was a huge part of it. And that's when Sam's at his best. When there's a run game going, he can do that play action, move the pocket, and find JSN on crossing routes or deep balls. That's the other thing when you compare this first half, the second half with Sam Darnold, is you haven't really had the deep ball to Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you had that once or twice a game at least, and you felt like they couldn't miss. So I think that's something that they have to try to work back into this. But when it comes down to the narrative, to answer your question, of Sam Darnold and can he win the big game? I think it is very, very unfair to say that he can't. And the reason being is because it's only happened once. He's only been in the big game once. That was last season, right? It was one game against the Rams in the playoffs. And I think it's hard to judge that and base it on someone who's had how many quarterbacks play in their first playoff game and win? Very rarely does that ever happen. Now, I got the comparison to Rory McIlroy in the Masters. Someone goes, well, is Sam Darnold like Rory trying to win the Masters? And I go, no, like Rory's tried it 15 times. If Sam Darnold was in losing 15 playoff games in a row for 15 straight seasons, yes, I will say he cannot win the big game. I'll be the first to jump on that bandwagon. But one game, I have a really hard time getting on that bandwagon because he's had back-to-back seasons now with 14 wins on the team he's on, which him and only Tom Brady can be in that category. And you played in the best best division for both of those seasons. And so you tell me that you haven't played in a big game throughout those 2 years, playing in the best division and winning 14 games, and you haven't played well. I'm just not going to get on that bandwagon, I don't think.
Bryan, it's crazy. We're talking so much about the offense for the Seahawks when their defense is so incredible. And we'll get to the defense in just a second. But, I mean, Jackson Smith-Njigba has been so incredible this season. You mentioned the run game. I'm curious, from your perspective as someone who played the game, can you speak to like the cohesion of a well-oiled machine on offense and how Smith-Njigba and the threat that he is down the field impacts positively the run game, and vice versa, how the Seahawks establishing their running game just frees things up for Smith-Njigba? Because in my mind, it's like the Niners should never take an eye off of Smith-Njigba, but when you're forced to because the run game is established, it's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, I go with JSN. I talk about a lot how he's kind of the I think one of the most all-around receivers in the NFL. He can kind of do it all. A lot of times you put receivers in categories. You go, oh, well, this guy's a big body receiver. He can out muscle guys and come down with catches. Oh, and then this guy's a route runner. Like he's going to be the quick, shifty guy. He can route you up, get the first downs, sure hands. There's all these kind of categories you can put on wide receivers. And to Jackson Smith-Njigba, it's hard to place him in one of those categories. Because he is a good route runner. I'll take that back. I'm not going to put him in the big body category because he's not a big body receiver. Like we all know that. But he can run a route. He can route anybody up at any time. He can stretch it deep, and he's done that with the best of them this season. As far as the deep ball being explosive, he can make the catch in traffic. That first down converter. So he's just kind of been everything for the Seahawks and really excelled ever since the departure of DK Metcalf. Now, with this whole offense, and again, you talk about cohesiveness with the run game, the pass game. A lot of times when you watch the Seahawks and how they set up this play action pass, the receivers are almost kind of diving in like they're going to block a lot of the time to start these routes, start these crossers, start these inside routes, and then it kind of breaks. There's a lot of you set up your route based on this run game as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big part, especially at the tight end position. You see that a lot. AJ Barner's the guy that's really excelled this year at this, is really coming off the ball like he's about to block, but then kind of running his route and really selling that. And that's the cohesiveness that you want in offense. You want guys bought in, but you don't get that cohesiveness if you're not willing to block in the first place. And that's where JSN is also big, is he is willing to dive in there. And really the whole receiving corps here with Seattle, they've really dove into this run game and know that that's how they're going to get on the field. A lot of guys past JSN, right? They have to go in and block, and they have to be that guy in there, and they take pride in that. And it's not going to sell the defense if all of a sudden you're going hard on a run play. They're going to be like, all right, you're passing all the time. But if you go hard every single play, you're diving in, you're picking out the safeties, you're picking out linebackers, whatever you're doing, then it's going to help. And I think that's kind of the whole cohesive offense and how it's supposed to work and how it's supposed to flow.
Bryan Walters is kind enough to join us. We are talking Seahawks and Niners. So excited for this game coming up on Saturday. Bryan, we get participation in our YouTube chat, and, everybody wants to get involved. And I know there's questions about, Mike McDonald and, how well he's coached this year, which has been phenomenal. But this is the playoffs now, and you got a guy like Kyle Shanahan who has done an incredible job with a lot of nothing this year due to the injuries. How much, though, do you feel like this is going to be like coaching, like made it all about the coaches, like because both teams are strong in what they do. And yes, there are injuries, but Kyle Shanahan is such a great coach and he's proven that. How much comes down to just straight coaching in this one?
At this point in the season, a lot of it does. I mean, I'd say almost most of it. And I'll go back to week 18 because Kyle Shanahan actually had some good play calls back in week 18 that should have worked, could have worked. And so, all right, I'll be very specific. Let's say it's 4th and 1. Niners had 4th and 1. I don't know if you guys remember this play. It was a little earlier. It was almost an interception by Reek Woolen for the Seahawks. Brock Purdy threw it to the flat. But on that play, that is a well-designed play by the 49ers. They had a wide receiver up the left side wide open. I mean, he was wide open. The Seahawks lost track of him, and he was open like, come on, give me the ball. But on that play, what happened is DeMarcus Lawrence of the Seahawks, the end, completely threw away his offensive lineman trying to block him and then hurdled McCaffrey and got pressure on Brock Purdy. So I look at that and I say, well, look, that's a great play call because Brock Purdy wanted to go deep. He did. He was stepping up. He was looking. He was ready to go. But the individual one-on-one battle is what kept that from working. And that is kind of a little bit what scares me going into this game because I know Kyle Shanahan sees that, right? Shanahan sees, well, hey, we had some calls on that game that could have worked, but guys, you got to win your one-on-one battles. You have to. None of this is going to work if you don't win your matchups. And I think that'll be a big emphasis for Kyle Shanahan this week because like the Seahawks are talented all around on defense. I mean, you go from D-line to linebacker to secondary, you got kind of superstars all over that defense now, and it shows, but that's why it's so much more important for the 49ers to be able to come up with one of those wins. And again, it all comes down to, like, as much as it seemed like the Seahawks defense dominated that game, and they did for the most part, it's like you guys 49ers still had a chance. Like in the end, there was the pass that was intercepted, fluke, tipped right to Drake Thomas. I mean, that's a fluke. That's a fluke play that happened, and you're about to make that a one-score game. And so for all the bad that went on in that for the 49ers offense, it's like they were right there. You guys were right in that. And it's a couple little breaks that went the Seahawks' way that changed it. And again, you know, Kyle Shanahan's a fantastic coach. Robert Saleh, one of my favorites. He was a coach. He was one of my coaches here in Seattle when I was with the Seahawks. He was here. He won a Super Bowl with him. And KJ Wright's there on defense too. A couple guys there that I love to see doing big things. But you know, those guys are just brilliant football minds, and they're going to come up with some big time things to counter some of these one-on-one matchups that didn't go the 49ers way the last game.
Bryan Walters joining us from Fox 13 in Seattle, does Seahawks pre and post game. Bryan, when you were giving that explanation and describing some of those plays, you said something that set off a ping in my brain to remind me to ask you about. You talked about the pressure that got to Brock Purdy. If we are, it's Monday and we're analyzing this game, and no matter who wins or who loses, but in this case, it's likely the Seahawks win if this is the scenario. And we're talking about the difference in this game was pressure on the quarterback. That Seattle was able to get pressure on Purdy, but the Niners, who have struggled to get pressure on anybody since Bosa went down, they weren't able to get to Darnold. How big of an X factor do you think can that be in a game that's so close between two teams like this?
That is the X factor. That is everything. That was the difference in week 18, and that will be the difference in this game. Because, I think getting Trent Williams back will be huge. And I think getting Trent Williams back with a game under his belt is even bigger. Because we all know how, he had a little tweaked hamstring. Is that correct? Is that?
I believe so.
And I shouldn't say little tweaked hamstring, but he had a tweaked hamstring. And those are tough. But one of the toughest things about a hamstring is the confidence when you come back the next game. And so I think you see Trent Williams a little bit last game. I don't think he was himself yet, but having that one game under your belt, that confidence to say, hey, I lasted this entire game, my hamstring was good, is really big for the 49ers. Now he can come back this game and not really think about it. Because I've been there. I pulled a hamstring, and that first game back, you're kind of like a little bit afraid to really let it go, let it loose. And that's kind of what I saw to Trent Williams. So that'll be huge. That's big because the Seahawks are going to bring pressure. That one thing they did well week 18 against 49ers is pressured Brock Purdy without having to blitz. That's something they've done all season long. One of the best teams in the league at it. And you need your big man. You need your Trent Williams to be able to stop that, because that is going to be the big thing. And again, Nick Bosa out and Fred Warner. I mean, it's you guys have studs, although it's been unfortunate, but what you guys have done not having them has been pretty impressive.
Is always hard to stop a guy, I should say, like Christian McCaffrey, right? Because he's just proven time and time again, and even when there's not as many weapons this year for them on offense, and now the Kittle injury, that he can get it done. But you mentioned the Seahawks defense, and they're good at almost every position. And I think sometimes we don't talk enough about the linebacker position. I had the pleasure of covering Ernest Jones for a short time. I want you to just speak about the leadership on this team, especially from a guy like that, and maybe how that ties to just the production they're getting this year.
Ernest Jones is one of the best pickups the Seahawks have made. I don't know if you remember this, but we'll go back to last season. About 6 weeks through the season, I mean, the Seahawks made a complete shift at linebacker, traded their 2 starters they had, and made a trade for Ernest Jones. And when they got Ernest Jones, this defense was completely, it's like it clicked. You know, that click moment, that moment where it's like, okay, this is how a defense is supposed to be. That's what happened when Ernest Jones wore that green dot and became the leader of this defense. And the best part, on the field shows for itself. He's flying all over, making plays, but he always has his teammates' backs. I think we hear these post-game press conferences from him every day, or every game. You hear what he gets up and has to say. He is always backing his teammates. Someone's on Sam Darnold. No, that's our quarterback. Like, no, I'm not responding to that. And he just has their back. And I think that's the leader you need there in the middle of the defense. But no, he's been nothing but impressive for this team and made play. I think he's been huge for the pass coverage as well. I think that was a big struggle for the Seahawks at the linebacking position for last couple of years, is just the pass coverage, how you defend some of these tight ends over the middle. But he's shown he has some range over the middle, defending those plays, and just one of my favorite players on the Seahawks to watch, and just the passion he has for the game. And I think he's only 26 years old or something like that. He's so young, which is absurd to me.
Bryan, you've been around football your entire life, and you can speak on this from a player perspective, which is what I'm really interested in. Have you seen or experienced a season injury-wise like the 49ers have experienced, to where, I mean, they're looking at like power plants near their practice facility for an explanation? It's just been one of those wild, and it's been the last couple of years really that the Niners have dealt with catastrophic injuries like this. Of course, we saw what happened to George Kittle in Philadelphia, which is just another brutal blow for this team. Yeah. But this is a violent game, right? And injuries happen. But have you seen anything like this? And what do you remember dealing with and battling just the injury ebbs and flows of an NFL season?
No, I think the 49ers kind of have taken it to the next level as far as what they've had to deal with this season, especially like there's always season-ending injuries. Everyone's going out, but not to your studs all like this. I mean, 3 of them: Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, now George Kittle, gone. And Brock Purdy didn't play for 6 games during the season. McCaffrey surprisingly has been healthy all year, right? Which is kind of the silver lining, I guess, to your season, because he's been fantastic. But and I even take it a step further, and Brandon Ayuk, like that whole situation. I don't know what's going on there, but the fact that you don't have him as well. Ricky Pearsall's hurt you guys his last couple weeks not being there, because he quietly became that number 1 receiver there. So, I mean, I cannot really put into words. I've never experienced a season like that, especially that you've kept winning. Like, that's the most important thing. It's like the 49ers have never looked back. They just keep winning games with all these injuries. Like, I've seen guys go down and your season's just toast, right? You lose someone for the year, it's over, and you don't win. It's not how it's supposed to work. You're not supposed to have that kind of depth to be able to fill in, or that kind of coaching to be able to overcome injuries like that. But 49ers have done it. And from what I hear, Fred Warner's practice window's open, right? And hopefully not for the Seahawks' sake, but for the 49ers' sake, it sounds like the goal is, if you can win this game, he'll be back for the NFC Championship. That's the goal. So that would be huge for the 49ers.
Bryan Walters joining us. We're talking Seahawks. We're talking Niners. it's been a while since I've been up there and seen a game in person because I've spent a lot of my career in the mid part of the country in the South. So what's going on with, Niners fans travel so well, but I'll turn on a game every now and then and I'll see all this red and I'm thinking, well, what's going on? What's going on in Seattle? What do you expect just in terms of the environment this weekend? Because, again, we know Niners fans travel well.
Yeah. I think the Seahawks have done some things this week to try to crack down on people selling their tickets, especially to opposing fans. I don't know how you do that. It just seems like a lot of steps to take. The other thing I will say is the way the cameras shoot toward the opposing sideline. That's always where the visiting fans are.
Sure.
So on TV and all that, it looks, and red sticks out. Red sticks out.
Sure.
Like no other, right? So when the cameras are constantly on that sideline, facing that way, because the press box is on the opposite side of the field and the cameras are going there, you're going to see a lot of red in the stands. Now, if you were to pan out kind of all the way around the rest of the other 7/8 of the stadium, there's not a ton of red. You'll see it a lot. But 49er fans do travel well. They do. They always have had that reputation. I also don't think they have to travel very far. I think there's a lot of 49er fans up here. I think there's a lot of 49ers in the Northwest. A lot of fans that are just like, all right, we get a game nearby, we're getting those tickets. So that's good. I mean, they have a lively fan base, and that's fantastic. You love it, and that's just what makes this rivalry all the better, I think. And I just love that this rivalry is kind of rejuvenated. It seemed like it was more so the 49ers for the past few years kind of dominating the thing. And then before that, it was kind of the Seahawks dominating the rivalry a little bit. And now it's kind of back to, well, both teams are really good, competing in the playoffs the way it should be.
All I'm thinking of is Michael Crabtree versus Richard Sherman. That's just going off over and over in my head right now. Bryan, you've been so generous with your time here this week. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the build-up. Enjoy the atmosphere. And no matter what, we should all win as football fans because it should be entertaining, fun football to watch this weekend. So thank you for taking the time.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It's going to be a fun one. So best of luck to you guys. And go Hawks.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bryan
Thanks,
doesn't
Bryan.
mean that. Best of luck to you. He doesn't mean that. He's like, I'm just being cordial. I hope the Seahawks win by 50. Bryan, thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Yep. Of course.
I can't wait for this game. And we're just starting. We're just dipping our toes in the water of the preview of this game and all the questions around this game. He provided some really, really interesting perspective on the Niner or the Seahawks side of things, also on the Niners side of things too. So all week long, we're going to continue to preview this massive 49ers and Seahawks game. But when we come back, we're switching gears to the Kings one more time. We have an update on, or kind of details on the Dennis Schroeder Luka Doncic situation. So we'll play those for you and react to those coming up next here on Sactown Sports.